Yeah, absolutely. And the doctors are the worst at rest. And we didn't think that it mattered much. We were thinking of ourselves as machines that we don't need any downtime. But of course, it's not true. And I worked a lot like that. I think I've been working day and night, for a long time, getting really tired. But I thought that being tired was just uncomfortable. But now we know that it's downright dangerous, that it's carcinogenic. You could get cancer from it, and heart disease, and all other kinds of diseases. But because we need the downtime to recover for the process in our body to work properly. And we didn't just know that as physicians, this 10, 15 years ago, if you were talking about sleep, 20 years ago, you would just laughed at. That's like kind of an alternative, mumbo jumbo stuff, Now we have the science behind it, so it's easy to see that if you sleep less, your chances of getting Alzheimer's or Parkinson or whatever disease, So getting better sleep is the base of everything. So that's also why in the post-cure also start by getting the sleep in order, because then you'll get more energy to make right choices the rest of the day. If you start with poor sleep, you're behind, throughout the whole day. You want to eat something fast carbs, and you take all sorts of bad choices. So absolutely, the doctors have been a terrible example at this, and hopefully that will change. It has changed in Norway, that's sure. So we used to think of ourselves as a superhuman, to be working. I think the most time I've been working without sleep is like 51 hours. Maybe with 1 hour of sleep, on the couch, as you say there. Other times I've been working a lot, 14 days in a row. But then I've been in the districts where I could probably sleep, throughout the night, every other night, and then been woken up once or twice, a night, the other night. So we've been used to, push ourselves, and so that's true.
And welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have an amazing author on the podcast. He's not from Canada, and you'll hear it in his wonderful accent. I know that I, as a Canadian, don't have an accent. That's what I know. And my guest today is joining me. We're talking about his journey as an author. He's also a doctor. He's going to bring lots of his experience and his thoughts to share with us on the show. And I'm excited to have him here on the podcast. Dr. Torkil is here with us. Doctor, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be here and talking about writing books. I'm talking so much about the book. So to talk about writing books is a great change for me. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Okay, so please tell us, Dr. Torkil, your full name and where you are in this big world of ours.
Yes, my name is Torkil Færø. I'm a Norwegian general practitioner, emergency physician, author, photographer, and I live in Norway, Oslo, Norway. So, I've written several books. The one available in English is The Post-Cure, about how we can use wearables and trackers of heart rate to improve our health. It's the only book actually on the subject, so it's been a wild race since I made it, yeah.
So, okay, one of the benefits of having a podcast is I get to travel the world virtually and meet great people from around the world and get a little snapshot and a little glimpse into life in your part of the world. So can you tell us, it's December when we're recording in Canada. We're getting a little chilly now. It's getting close to winter. What's it like in Norway this time of year?
It's probably pretty much the same. I would guess the temperature in your area in Norway would be pretty similar, at least in my part of the country in the south, yeah.
Okay.
So it's,
we're about
it's
freezing today,
just below freezing, maybe 1 or 2 degrees below freezing, and a little bit of snow, and quite dark. It's darker than in your place. It would be like the very north of Canada. So we have daylight, true daylight, maybe from 10 to 2 a.m., 10 to 2 p.m., yeah.
Wow, that's it? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, a lot of, wow, that's amazing. I didn't even realize it was get dark that soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. For somebody new coming to Norway, any must-see, must-do things that somebody should put on their list?
That must be nature. Yeah, nature and northern lights at this time of year, the midnight sun in the summer, and generally nature, the fjords, and it's a very special nature here, actually. So I've been traveling around the world, more than 80 countries, but still Norwegian the Norwegian nature, and we're not so many people, so a lot of people like to come here, probably just about the same as Canada, you have areas that are not so many people and get away from the hot, pressure of Central Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your medical practice as well. Who do you serve, and kind of a little history behind how you got here?
Yeah, I'm actually a freelance doctor, and the way I got inspired to do that was actually in Canada. I was traveling in Canada in 91, and I got to hear that there would be physicians who would work in the northern areas for half a year, and then they could do whatever, the other half year, and that attracted me. So that's when I decided okay, I'll go for the medical study. I can work like this, because I understood that I have too many interests. I can't just have one job and that's it for like 60 years. So I need to have a good variation between what I'm doing. And that has worked out really fine. So I'm still working as a freelance doctor and never had a steady job, or what you would say in English. Always working 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, one shift here and there, close to where I live on the ER. So, and then I've been able to sail around the world with my family, teaching photography workshops all over the world, traveling. Yeah. So it's been a way for me to live an adventurous life. And well, so being an author is also a part of that. So for the last 5 years, I've been more than like 50% an author. That takes up more than 50% of my time, writing and talking about the books and doing lectures and all of this. So, yeah.
With all those different passions that you have, do you find that kind of feeds into your writing as an author, having all these different things to pull from as inspiration?
I think so. I think so, that I'm able to write from a different perspective with more real life experience than many others who would have kind of 1 year experience repeated 20 years.
Yeah.
I've been trying to live. I've been actually trying to live 10 lives into one life. That is kind of the strategy, so that I will do enough very different things, so that because of course you cannot live 10 lives, but if you can live quite differently for maybe a 5-year period or so, it's like a life in itself, and that is what I've been trying to accomplish. So we'll see how long this writing life will last, and then take it from there.
What do you find enjoyable about the writing life?
It's very interesting to have an audience, somebody who's writing, because I've been used to ponder all these questions and things that I'm talking about in my books, but only inside my own mind, So I'm asking the question and I'm the one answering, nobody else is listening. And certainly, because this book in Norway, if we would compare it to, for example, US standards, it would have sold 2.5 million copies. That's the size of the success in Norway, with 5 million people. So suddenly I get recognized on the streets. People come up to me on Instagram and all the different channels. People are contacting me, and the media is more or less every week. There's something in the media. All the podcasts, I've been on 200 podcasts the last 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Almost as many as you.
Almost. Without the title of a doctor behind me to back me up. But yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, when you go on all these shows and you talk about your practice and what you teach and how you help people and your writing, what's something enjoyable for you out there in creating content out in the world? What kind of things do you like about getting out there and sharing your message?
Oh, it's also that I have to think, to be able to explain what I'm doing. So it's kind of a challenge to clarify in my own mind what I'm actually doing, why I'm doing it. And every podcast is different. And so that's what I like. I don't get tired of that. I don't get tired of working in the ER or as a doctor, and I don't get tired of this. So there must be, and I get easily tired or bored, I would rather say. I get easily bored.
Yeah.
So it must be something, about it that still attracts me and still makes it enjoyable to show up for a podcast at any time. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you for what you do for your community. I think you mentioned a staggering statistic for Norway and how many people that you've served as a doctor in your country. Like you gave me a percentage of how many people you've worked with.
Yeah, I've actually examined 1% of Norway's population. So I've been examining personally 50,000 different Norwegians because I've been working in this way all over the country. So that's 1% of the Norwegian population. So, and that is why I decided that I could also write books. I could also raise my voice because as a doctor, you are used to, okay, it's the senior doctors who can talk. It's the professors, it's the researchers, it's the top expert in the area. Only that person is allowed to say anything. And the rest of the doctors, we're just, it's like a hierarchy where at the bottom, we should just keep silent and do what the others tell us to do. And as I had experienced so much real life experience with all these different people, I could see that the landscape is not quite as it's pretended to be. You know, we can do so much more. There's so much lifestyle related diseases, so much more than we can take control of, more than we were taught in medical school and is generally appreciated, I would say, by the population. Most of the population would think that the disease would strike them more from a genetic background or just bad luck. But somewhere around 80% of the diseases that we contract and treat has something to do with lifestyles. So, and that is what my books are about.
So that's one thing I noticed. Different approaches to medicine from doctors that I've been in touch with or crossed paths with in the past is some doctors treat symptoms, some doctors treat the cause. So I can give you a pain medicine for whatever ails you, but I could also go back and figure out what's causing the pain. That's a totally different approach, right?
Yeah, I give you the advice that would help you not getting into that situation, you know. But it would take some effort, and so it's more effort than just giving a pill. But usually the pills that we have for these modern day diseases are not really helping. It's just kind of keeping the disease under control, partly control, and not avoiding it in totally.
So I come in, sit down with you to get some advice on a healthy lifestyle. Any tips from your perspective that we can share with people listening around the world? I know that you don't cover the world globally as far as a doctor, but there's got to be some basics.
Yeah, we're all human, and we all have to look back at how we were living in the ancestral way, and the closer we can get to that, the better for our health. So sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night with restorative sleep so that you're calm and have a good heart rhythm during the night. So that is how we can see it on the wearables and smartwatches, that we're not only sleeping 7 to 8 hours, but it's also restorative sleep. We are recovering while we sleep. So that would be one thing. And then minimizing the use of alcohol. Alcohol is the worst stressor on the body, even though I used to think that it would calm me down. But when you use the trackers, you see that there's so much stress on the body in the nighttime after you have gone to sleep. And other than that, it would be to exercise regularly. It doesn't need to be very hard or take a long time, but that you do some effort to put on some muscles and have some endurance. And it's not only because of longevity that you will live longer, or you could then expect to live longer, but it will get you more well-being in the moment. You have a greater capacity to take on all kinds of strain, both mentally and physically. So, and that would be something. And of course, the Pulse Cure is really a book with a summary of all the best lifestyle tricks that you can do and implement to have a better lifestyle. And then also the luck is that the heart rate will reveal that whether it works or not, because what is good for you will be revealed in a better heart rate, and what is bad for you will be shown in a worse heart rate. So that is why we can use these wearables and the new technology and artificial intelligence to help us to live a better quality life.
For those people who haven't used a wearable ever in the past, is there some good key things to look for in our consideration of a good wearable that will help our maintain and monitor our health better?
Yeah, that would be a Garmin watch. So the Garmin watches are by far the best ones. You could also have an Oura ring, O-U-R-A, Oura ring, which is quite popular. If you don't want, a watch will tell you the stress level at all times. You may not want to do that, but if you want to micromanage your stress levels, then Garmin is the best. And if you want just a ring that will tell you the state of your body in the morning, that would be Oura. So they have some different pros and cons, but it's interesting, and the evolution in this market is just exploding. So it will be something that everybody will use more or less, within 5 or 10 years. We use artificial intelligence like everywhere else in our lives, in our cars, in our planes, in our iPhones and whatever. But now we can use it on our own physiology to help us, because the heart rate can reveal something about your function and physiology that is really hard to notice. We're not equipped to notice this from nature's side. We have excellent senses toward the outdoor threats that historically have been threatening us, other animals and enemies and foul food and such things. But sensing our inner stress has not been a priority. So that is why having these wearables is kind of having an amplifier for your system that makes it visible, the stress on your system. And that, of course, makes it a lot easier to manage when you can measure it, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a musician and I play guitar, and my guitar has an amplifier. When I plug my guitar into the amplifier, I can hear it better, and it makes the sound louder and more noticeable. So maybe in health-wise, the same thing. These wearables and the knowledge that you're helping us to understand can just amplify that knowledge so that we're more aware of what's happening, similar to a guitar and an amplifier would be.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Good. Okay. The process of writing, where did you learn how to do this? Where did you learn how to go, hey, I'm going to go take all of this knowledge, all of this experience I have, and now I'm going to start writing my thoughts and becoming an author. Was it somebody who told you that you should do this, or did you just tell it yourself?
It was something I read, actually. I was reading a book. It's called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And in that book, it was written the preposterous idea that like anyone can be an author, that you didn't need to be the top expert in your field. But if you knew, by what I can remember, if you knew more than 70% of most people, you can write a book about it. And somehow the next morning I was teaching a workshop in Morocco, and the one that I was teaching the workshop together with, he asked me, what are you going to do now? And I suddenly answered, I'm going to write books. And it was something, almost from outside myself. I couldn't believe that I was saying those words, because I hadn't written anything since grade school, since I was 19. I wrote some articles on my experience in Doctors Without Borders in Angola about mine injuries and so. But that was just, it's 10 pages. And that is all that I had written for like 20 years. So it was really, really a weird idea. But I thought, okay, I got this idea. Let's see where it takes me. And I started writing books. I wrote some books on photography. Among them, I wrote the Camera Cure that was released. The first 2 books I published myself. And the third book I got published by Norway's biggest publisher. It's called The Camera Cure. It's a book on therapeutic photography. Unfortunately, not released in English. Hopefully it will be. But because how you take a good picture, that is how you do everything. So you can teach the strategy of life skill, the principles of success, so to speak, through taking pictures, which is a very concrete, visible act that you can show to people. And that was the advantage that I had found, teaching photography. So it's so easy to see what you're doing, if what you're doing is successful or not, if your strategy and mental attitude towards what you're doing is working. And so I wrote that book, and it became a bestseller. And then after a while, my editor was aware that I was doing these things with my heart rate monitors and asked me if I could write that book. And I could. And that was just a kind of a dark horse bestseller. It became the third most popular bestseller in Norway after a book on AI. Of course, that had to be on top, and one about the future king, the biography. So it was it came as a success from an author that nobody knew about, and about a subject that was totally new and surprising. So it is actually still the only book. This is 2 years after it was released in Norway. It's still the only book in the world that combines the knowledge of a healthy lifestyle and how to use the wearables to achieve it, which is quite weird.
I got to jump back. What was the what sparked your passion for photography? I got to know.
Yeah, I was traveling a lot. So I was traveling around the world maybe for 2 or 3 years, in separate, occasions, maybe 1 year here, another year there, and so on. And I found that taking pictures was a way to experience life more profoundly, that you had like a passport and an excuse to take pictures of people, even if you're in the Andes Mountains or in Africa somewhere or in India. Once you have the camera, you get invited into situations, and you kind of have to look better. You have to be more curious. You're getting experiences that you wouldn't have gotten without the camera. And as you are more activated in the act of photography, you remember it better. So I tend to remember the occasions where I've been photographing a lot better than many other situations, because when you are activated in your brain, with adrenaline, it kind of tags that memory stronger in your brain. So, and after a while, I got interested in art photography, somewhere in between of documentary photography and fine art photography. So I had exhibitions and made books, and was a, quite successful photographer, but not really getting where I wanted to go. So, and I was teaching photography. Probably been teaching more than 60 workshops around the world, like in Cuba and Ethiopia, Morocco, Croatia, Sri Lanka, Israel, Palestine, many places. So it has brought me a lot of experience also to teach, to help others to achieve what they want. So I probably used some of that experience in my books as well. That if people don't have any use of what I'm writing, I might as well not have done it. So it's trying to find a way that is actionable for people to do what they want. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think from a photographer's perspective, knowing your tools, knowing how to use the right lenses, the right lighting, there's all kinds of things that come into play for a photographer, and just understanding the target for what you're taking pictures of. I think that also translates to writing. There's a different lens, to use the same word, there's a different lens that you have to use as a writer to write for the audience that is going to be reading these words. So for you, from your perspective, how do you write in a way that is going to connect with an audience, getting out beyond what's in your own mind to reaching out to an audience to read those words? What lens are you using to reach out to that audience through your writing?
I think I write pretty intuitively. I write not to convince the expert. I write directly to maybe an experienced user, maybe one that has not a lot of insight into our, medicine or health and so on. So I think I'm communicating directly with that. I'm not scared. Many people writing books in medicine are very scared of the professors, of those high powers, but I'm not. So the main thing is to write something that makes it actionable for you as a layman. While at the same, everything has to be correct. Everything has to be scientifically correct, of course, but it has to be explained in a language that people understand, and not trying to sound very smart or to be very prestigious. Medicine, the things that helps us living a better life is free and uncomplicated. is moving, it's sleeping, it's being outside under the sunlight, it's resting, it's eating whole foods that is not ultra processed. It's easy things. It's using your breath work to calm yourself down, or using cold water and cold temperature to calm your system down. So it's nothing prestigious about it, and it's free. So in that sense, I'm not trying to impress anyone. Maybe that's a characteristic, and I try to write in a compassionate way, without overdoing it. I hear that people say that I have a kind of a warmth in what I communicate. That is probably not so much a conscious way of doing it, but maybe that's just my way of writing. And as I'm not a professional writer, I don't. I just write. I'm not educated to write in a certain way. Although I've read maybe 2 or 3 books on writing. So of course, when I decided to be a writer, I bought 2 or 3 books, I think, on writing, to get some tips on how to do it, and they proved to be very good. So I just did that the easy way, and yeah.
Amazing. Okay, let's talk about your most recent book. What have you been writing? What's coming up for us as readers as we follow along on your journey as an author? What's next?
Yeah, so a book that I've just delivered is being sent to somewhere in Eastern Europe to be printed right now, again for the same publisher, Norway's biggest publisher. It's about rest. It would be called, if it gets translated and bought by a British publisher, it's called The Rest Cure. So it's using the magnifying glass on rest and how we can rest better and recover better, because that seems to be the hardest part for people from the pulse cure. So active rest is one of maybe 10 chapters in the pulse cure, and we have kind of expanded that chapter and been looking at the whole stress balance system through rest and how we can rest better, because that seems to be hard for a lot of people. And if you are not good at resting and recovery, you will burn out. You cannot be productive over time if you're not very good at resting. And resting is not only in your way of performance, it's the way to better performance. So a lot of research shows that the best performers, regardless of category, if you're a businessman or musician or photographer or whatever, the ones that are best at deliberate rest, they are also the most successful ones. So that's been an interesting journey, writing a new book, and suddenly you have some pressure on yourself, from having written a bestseller, and then suddenly you kind of have to write as well, and to deal with that, and try not to think of that, and just try to write as easy as I can. So that's my advice. I must say that probably the best book on photography, on writing, is The Right to Write from Julia Cameron, and her whole system, The Artist's Way. That famous multi-million seller books on how to be creative. And I've kind of followed her system by starting out to write the first draft just intuitively, writing it all the way through from start to end, and then just starting again and again and again. And I think on the last book I rewrote it 10 times. So each time you go back to the start, you improve it a little bit here and there. And then you remember, I should put this in, or okay, I can take this out, and so on. So every time you write it through, it becomes a little bit better. So, and in the end, it's quite fast to read through it, I think. So I think that strategy has really helped me. And it's an easy strategy that even I, as a non-author, could relate to. And that when the first you start writing, you don't have any perfectionism. You're just producing, you're just writing. You're not thinking about the end result. You're just thinking about the process. And for each rewriting session, you are adding some perfection, so that by the end of it, then you're kind of manipulating any sentence, to improve every sentence. So I think it's a really good way of doing it.
Okay, so let's jump back to the idea of rest. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this. Whenever I see anything on Hollywood or television that depicts a doctor in the hospital serving patients, going from room to room, patient to patient, I see footage of doctors and nurses sleeping on gurneys in the hallway, trying to sleep in the lunchroom, in the rest room, kind of the rest break room, trying to catch a few minutes of sleep before they run back into the floor again. Not a great illustration of rest from a doctor's perspective.
Yeah.
In that they're working so much and running from room to room in high stress, no rest, no chance to rest. I have an example. I'm working with a doctor around his podcast. He doesn't even have time to jump onto a Zoom call and talk about his show because he's always in surgery. He's always going from room to room, busy all the time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. He's on. And I'm like, as a doctor who's written about rest, do you feel that maybe what we're being fed through television, movies, and things that depict doctors as superheroes that never need to rest is a good illustration of, for us as non-doctors, that to have a doctor tell us to rest, but doctors don't seem to rest?
Yeah.
Seems to be a disconnection there. Can you explain that to me?
Absolutely. And the doctors are the worst at rest. And we didn't think that it mattered much. We were thinking of ourselves as machines, that we don't need any downtime. But of course, it's not true. And I worked a lot like that. I think I've been working day and night, for a long time, getting really tired. But I thought that being tired was just uncomfortable. But now we know that it's downright dangerous, that it's carcinogenic. You could get cancer from it, and heart disease, and all other kinds of diseases. But because we need the downtime to recover for the process in our body to work properly. And we didn't just know that as physicians. This 10, 15 years ago, if you were talking about sleep, 20 years ago, you were just laughed at as like kind of an alternative, mumbo jumbo stuff, Now we have the science behind it, so it's easy to see that if you sleep less, your chances of getting Alzheimer's or Parkinson or whatever disease, So getting better sleep is the base of everything. So that's also why in the Pulse Cure also start by getting the sleep in order, because then you'll get more energy to make right choices the rest of the day. If you start with poor sleep, you're behind, throughout the whole day. You want to eat something fast carbs, and you take all sorts of bad choices. So absolutely, the doctors have been a terrible example at this, and hopefully that will change. It has changed in Norway, that's sure. So we used to think of ourselves as a superhuman, to be working. I think the most time I've been working without sleep is like 51 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe with 1 hour of sleep, on the couch, as you say there.
Yeah.
Other times I've been working a lot, 14 days in a row. But then I've been in the districts where I could probably sleep, throughout the night, every other night, and then been woken up once or twice, a night, the other night. So we've been used to, push ourselves, and so that's true.
So, okay, on our phones, on our mobile phones, we get a little warning when our battery's getting low. You get a little notification saying, hey, plug in your phone or we're not going to be working in a few minutes. What kind of notifications are we going to get as humans when we are lacking in rest and restorative sleep? What kind of notifications are going to show up on our screen that's going to say, hey, it's time for you to rest? What kind of things are our body going to tell us?
Yeah, and that is what is nice with the Garmin watches, because they will give you exactly that. It's a body battery system that you should charge up to 80 is what I find. You should try to charge up to 80 during the night so that you wake up in the morning with 80 more or less in body battery. and you should try to avoid getting less than 20 by the end of the day. So it's pretty much like your iPhone, that is, thriving with this range. If you push yourself too hard, maybe you wake up in the morning with 40 in body battery and you consistently get down to 5, which is the lowest number every day. That is people who are tired, who are worn out, and that risk contracting so many diseases because the immune system is just not handling the situation. Because it's like I'm talking in my books about kind of a body budget. So there's a certain energy available, and if you spend too much on other things, the energy available for your immune system to work, which is a very expensive system, takes a lot of energy to have a proper immune system, and a lot of energy. And if you just use your energy on treating alcohol or exercising too much or eating food that you're not supposed to eat, creating inflammation, you're just not working properly. You will get cancer and, well, all kinds of diseases.
Yeah, and then there's the whole myth of caffeine is going to help me make it through my day. It's going to give me the superpower to push through and do the incredible things that I'm asking my body to do. But
yeah,
it's kind of a lie in a sense. It's not really doing exactly what we need it to do for us.
Yes.
We need more rest.
Yes, and caffeine is good in the morning, to wake you up and kind of get a kickstart on the day, just like having natural light in your eyes in the morning is also very important. But what tired doctors and other people who are tired need to do is to drink coffee throughout the day. And then, of course, when it comes to evening time, they have too much caffeine in their system and will spend a lot longer time falling asleep, and their sleep quality will be worse. So when they wake up in the morning, they still need a lot of coffee just to keep going. So it's a vicious circle. So, but coffee in the morning is good, and it also contains polyphenols, a certain molecules that is helpful for your health. So it's in itself, it's a good thing.
Okay, all right. So as you write your books, then, and as you're sharing your thoughts through written word, what is your hope for readers as they read your book? What kind of connection are you trying to make between a doctor and, say, a patient? I love the relationship of that doctor-patient thing that happens when a doctor walks into the room and sits down with you and explains what's going on in your body. I love that connection. Sometimes doctors they talk over our heads as patients. We don't understand all the words they're saying. But sometimes you get a doctor who really connects with their patient.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's kind of what your books are intended to be, that connection.
Yeah, and I think they probably do. I think it's part of the success of the book that I'm inspiring to live a good life as good as possible, so that the books are also inspirational, but also giving them actionable tips on how to achieve a better health and why it's important. So to be as much useful as I can, so that I can avoid seeing them in the surgery, see them at the ER, so that they can stay away from me in real life.
Yeah. Is it true that an apple a day will keep you away from us? Is that true?
It helps. It certainly helps. So apples contain a lot of useful stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So absolutely, an apple wouldn't be all, but it would be part of it. Instead of a Snickers bar or a Mars bar or anything else. Yeah.
Okay. So we have the doctor's approval that an apple's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's good.
Absolutely.
I like that. There's other resources that you have mentioned in the past around helping you with your writing journey. You had mentioned a book by Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Ryan Holiday's Perennial Seller is very nice, I think, also for, not just for writing, but in the mentality of creating products that will last, and what it takes to do that. And of course, it often takes a real interest that you're not writing for money or just for money, but that you write from your own perspective. And I think the Perennial Seller from Ryan Holiday is a great book on the mentality and the practice. Like he also says something that's also useful, that and often quite, hands-on advice on, okay, you have to spend as much time with the published relationship work with your book as you have spent writing it. And also he's writing that the best thing you can do for your present book is to start the next one. So a lot of these quite memorable things that I can remember and relate to. So when my book now is published in January, my next book, okay, I'm prepared to do the PR work, but I'm also prepared to start the next one, realizing that that will help the other books that I've already made.
Okay. So as you're writing as well, what kind of things are you learning about yourself in the process of writing? How are you a different person while you write your books?
That was a tricky question. I haven't really thought of that. At least it's some of the hardest things I do. So to sit down and write for 4 hours is by far the hardest thing I can do. So I cannot write for more than 4 hours. So because other things I can do, working as a doctor, I can do for 14 days straight.
Yeah.
It doesn't tire me. It's easy. But to sit down and kind of wrestle words out of thin air for 4 hours, and that is the most challenging thing I can do. And and then I have to find ways to make that possible. So the most important for me is to put it in the calendar. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is writing, no matter what. The only thing I'll do then is to write. So if I can't write, then I can't do anything else either. Sort of the tricks that I've learned from these books that I've been reading, that this is the way I have to do it, that you cannot sit and wait for inspiration. It's like opening your shop. You open the doors and you start working, and you can only do as well as you can do for that time, and hope that it's enough. That I think Julia Cameron says that, okay, you will make sure the quantity, and maybe, God or some higher powers will make sure of the quality of it. But your job is only to make sure that the quantity of words is there. And that kind of thinking has helped me, I think. So I'm learning about myself to put myself in another situation, from not being a doctor in the office talking one-on-one, but to imagine what, like 10,000s of people will need on the other side of this when they read the book. So it's a super challenge, and also it's not just a one-man work. You have editors, you have I don't know how you call it. In Norway we call it word washers.
Okay. Word washers.
Word washers. Who will go through the book and maybe improve it, with their language. And maybe I've been writing in a, So it's and then the public relation, and then the whole process around books is totally different from what I've been living like, for all the years until I suddenly found myself a successful bestseller writer that I actually dreamed of, come to think of it, when I was a child. So one of my first childhood dreams was to become a best-selling author.
Wow.
And of course my dad laughed at me, why? Probably in a nice way, they don't get your hopes too high. But it was actually something that I was thinking of doing, as a 10, 12-year-old boy. Yeah.
And now you've done it.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So doctors write a lot of prescriptions for people. Take 2 of these, call me in the morning, those kind of prescriptions. If you could write a prescription for a new author on writing their book, and you could write down a few notes on a piece of paper from your perspective to another author early in their journey of writing their book, maybe they're a doctor and they want to take all their knowledge and experience and put it into a book. What would you write on a prescription for a new author? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah, maybe I would first recommend them to get the books from Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. and the right to write, so that you can learn from those who have been doing that, and the perennial seller book from Ryan Holiday, so you can start there, so that you don't just start writing and don't have an optimal way of doing it. And then just to assure yourself that everybody has a story in them, so, and that everybody has some expertise on a certain area that is more than 70% of the other ones in the same area, and then you can write the book. If it's if it's nonfiction. If it's fiction, everybody's got a story in them, so you can just start and enjoy the process more than being concentrated on the result. If you're thinking too much about the result, it kind of and perfectionism, it will be in your way. So you have to just focus on the process and the joy of doing the challenge, which is hard. So just do it. Of course, the Nike word slogan is the most important thing. I see too many. Right. I meet so many writers now, and when they are not too perfectionistic and too scared of not being accepted by the most important people, that is kind of paralyzing them. So I think it's important just to do it, and don't think too much about the result. Don't think too much about the critics. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. It's a great prescription for all of us. So we accept that as authors. Thank you for that. I want to wrap up with a question here at the end to kind of wrap up our conversation. But before I do that, Torkil, where do we go for connecting with you? We want to follow your journey and all of the future books that are going to happen in the future, because you're going to keep writing. I know that's going to happen. Well, where do we go to stay in touch with you? Social media or website? Where would you like to send us? And I'd like to wrap up with a question after that.
Yes. On Instagram, I'm Dr. Torkil, dr.torkil. I'm on my own name on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I'm Dr. Torkil as well. And I have a website called thepulsecure.com, where there's a free video lecture where I'm telling about how you can use the Garmin watches, to micromanage your stress levels and give the best advice on the different aspects of lifestyle habits that you would want to have to live like 20 years longer than you would if you don't have those lifestyles. Actually, research shows. So that would be the places. And of course, the book is available on Amazon and on any internet. They may not have it in the bookstore close to you, but if you go to Amazon, The Pulse Cure is also available as an audiobook and an ebook if you prefer to have those kind of read it in that way instead. Yeah. Good.
Okay, so at the end here, I wanted to do this at the end because I didn't want people to fall asleep during the conversation, because your ideas and your suggestions might help us sleep better. But I want to keep it to the end so they'll listen to all of it. But tonight we're going to go to bed. We struggle falling asleep at night. We're restless. Our mind is full. We just have a hard time falling asleep. We don't get quality sleep. I'm asking for my wife, who wrestles with sleep all the time. Mm-hmm. She wakes up in just any random time at night, doesn't get a full night's sleep all the time. She's really struggling. From your perspective, restorative sleep, you said it's important for us to have that good quality sleep. Are there any tips that we can do as listeners of the podcast tonight to get a better sleep, to prepare for bedtime so that we'll have a better restful sleep? Any thoughts that you could share with us that we can put into practice tonight?
Yeah. So that would be to start winding down 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed, by something that relaxes you. Reading a book is a favorite for many people. Avoiding eating later than 3 hours before you go to bed. That's really important. Okay. Avoiding alcohol, as I mentioned, that's the worst killer of sleep quality. Having the room quite cool, like 60 degrees Fahrenheit would be good. And totally dark, so that you cannot see a hand in front of you. Avoid bright lights. You dim the lights in the evening, and then in the morning, get outside light as early as you can. That kind of sets the melatonin will then be started to secrete 12 hours after that when you want it to help you getting asleep. Avoid caffeine after noon. So 12 o'clock will be a good time to stop drinking coffee. So that would be some advice. And then also to go to bed and wake up at the same time as much as you can throughout the week, and not change it too much in the weekends. And then your brain will be prepared to go into the right brain waves throughout the night, so it will improve the sleep. And of course, it would help immensely, having a wearable to.
Yeah.
Often is too much stress during the day that will, be coming into the night as well. So often a nighttime stress problem or lack of sleep has its cause in too much stress in the daytime. So, and then to be patient also. It could take some time, but once you have the wearables, you can identify good nights from bad nights and see what is in common with the good nights and what is in common with the bad nights. Maybe it's something that you're eating that you cannot tolerate well. And when you eat that, like pizza, for example, so many people, when they eat pizza, that's terrible for their sleep. So suddenly you realize such things that you would never have thought of. At least I wouldn't think of that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, there we got our own homework now that we can put into practice tonight. Dr. Torkil, I'm so glad that you're here. Congratulations on your books and sharing your message. To take it out of the ER, out of the hospital, and put your thoughts into a book that we can take home with us and read and enjoy and learn from. I'm so glad to see that you've found success. The childhood dream of being a successful author has happened and continues to happen for you. So thank you for being a part of the podcast and for sharing your thoughts here today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me and letting me talk to it. It's been really exciting to, talk about these things instead of just talking about the content of the book. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Everyone, all information for Dr. Torkil in the show notes, as always. We'd love for you to go and support him, buy his books. And when you buy his books online, please leave a detailed review of the book. That really helps other people to understand why this book is so important, and will bring more people to support Dr. Torkil as well. So please leave a great review as you buy his books. I really encourage you to do that because I know it's going to mean a lot to him as well. So again, Dr. Torkil, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun. Well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.